just to start off with, can you outline why you wanted to write this book and what the book is about?
Okay, well, I'll hold up a copy there because there it is, my back pages. After 50 years publishing other people's books, a number of people asked me if I could write my own view of what's happened over that 50 years. And I resisted because I think the world doesn't need another self-serving memoir about a clapped-out old publisher. But then a young friend of mine said he'd like to help me do such a thing, and that made Tom Campbell. And so we just decided to have a go. We didn't mean to publish it necessarily. The process was we'd meet once a week for a couple of hours in either a cafe or a pub, and I'd try to explain what had happened in this history, and he'd make some notes, and then we'd share the notes and turn it into something, and at the end of it we found we had a book. So at that point I thought, well, if this is a book, it must be read by people who know more about specific things than I do. So I sent it out to, I think, 8 referees, different expertise. And one of them said, well, he didn't know. He didn't think I got too much wrong, but could he publish it? So I said yes.
And across these 50 years that you've been working, you mentioned the book that you've seen more changes than in the last 500 years. Can you elaborate a little bit on what these significant changes have been and how they might have shaped the industry?
Yes, I'll start with things that are common to the world rather than to the industry. And the first, and I think most important, change has been the role of women in senior management, well, actually in all levels of the publishing industry and to some extent in the world, although I think publishing is ahead of some other industries in this area. When I started, all senior jobs, almost without exception, were held by aging white males like me. And now when I look around the industry, last week I was at the NIBIS, for instance, the book awards thing, and I should think at least 70% of the people in the room were women. I think 80% of the winners were women of prizes, and nearly all the senior people of the companies that were doing well were these companies led by women. So it's been a fantastic change for the better. Based in New York, and there were 4 people: the sort of founder, the brains, the software guy, and the marketing guy, basically, all men. Anyway, I arrive in New York and they show me what a floppy disk was, which was a round thing. And it was packaged in a white square box. And that's how they sold these floppy disks. And I said, but it's very strange because the disk is too small for the box, so it flops around inside. Why is that? The guy said, yeah, the box comes from my dad's factory, which is on the next floor up in this building. They make stockings for women, and the boxes are for putting stockings in. But they had some overs, so we borrowed them. Anyway, and then they showed me the first iteration of the spell checker, which wasn't called a spell checker, and there it was. They said, type something in. I typed something in. They said, look, if there's a spelling mistake, and I made a spelling mistake, it would come up and say, that word is spelt wrong. Would you like us to correct it? I said, yes. So that was corrected. And then they said, well, there are certain words which aren't in the dictionary, which you might not want to be told was a spelling mistake, like your own name. So we have this very advanced facility where if you put the name Charkin in and it says it's a spelling mistake, would you like to add this word to your personal dictionary? You say yes. And the machine whirred a bit and it came up and said, we have added Charkin to your personal dictionary. You will find it alphabetically between char and charm. Or they said, try something else. And I thought, well, these are Americans. And one thing I know about American dictionaries, small dictionaries, which Pocket Oxford is a small dictionary, is that they don't have four-letter words in them, whereas British dictionaries do. Some sort of puritanical American thing. So I put in the obvious four-letter word to see if they had taken out the four-letter words from the Pocket Oxford Dictionary, the one beginning with F. And sure enough, it said, this word is misspelt. Would you like to add it to your personal dictionary? So I said, yes. And it whirred away and it came up and said, fuck has been added to your personal dictionary. You will find it alphabetically between frustration and fulfillment.
Can you tell me a little bit about Mensch Publishing anyway, but also how you're combating some of these issues that we've mentioned?
Yeah, well, okay. Mensch Publishing was really, so at the age of 70, I stepped down from the main board of Bloomsbury because it's a public company, and I think there comes a time when you just got to get out. But I thought I'd be bored, and I agreed to work with them as my sales and distribution partners to start a new business and see if we could do things differently. The things we do differently are in the main trivial. I don't think I can say we've created a revolution, but I can test things. I can test things with that Bloomsbury would, or any major publisher would find hard to test, because if it goes wrong, it's a big deal for them. If it goes wrong, it's no big deal for me. I mean, some of the things are totally trivial, but I'll give you an example. I don't print the recommended retail price on the covers of any books.
Okay.
Why? Why not? Well, firstly, 50% of the books are sold in countries who don't know what a pound is, so it's irrelevant to them. Secondly, given how much discounting is happening in the world, the actual price the price paid bears little or no resemblance to the price printed. Thirdly, at a time particularly of inflation, if you want to change the price and the price is printed on the book, you have to take the stock out of the warehouse, sticker it, put it back in the warehouse, only for it to land on a bookseller's shelf and someone peels the sticker off and says, oh, I'm being ripped off. So not having it there at all. And given that the barcode contains the price, so they can always, you put it in the till and there comes up the price.
What would you say to a hopeful publisher or someone looking to switch around in publishing? What advice would you give them?
Well, the first advice I give them is to buy a copy of my book. How can I not?
Put that in bold in this.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing I think I've learned is not to worry about your career, but to worry about your job. And if you do your job right, by and large, your career takes care of itself, or at least in my case, that seems to have been it. So I've never really worried about careers. So when people talk about career development, I go, well, first of all, do your job. then having done it, one of the things that has happened over the 50 years is the industry has become more professional, and that's a good thing. So there are really good people in production, really good people in publicity, really good people in accounting, really good people in social media marketing, or whatever it might be. But actually, it is one industry. And being inquisitive about how the rest works so that you get a total picture rather than a partial picture. And the downside of the professionalization is, I think, all-rounders are fewer. And so if I was advising someone, I would say, get nosy, find out what everyone else is doing in their jobs. And it may not be immediately relevant, but in a way it is, because all we are doing is taking an author's words and finding a reader who will pay for them.